Before there was ever a contract, unions were in existence and they were representing their members. $11 billion was taken out of this American economy as a result of a 35-day partial shutdown.
Our members, especially those in the VA, they want to know, how do we get our contract back? How do we get collective bargaining back? Today, we are nearing 1 month since the 2025 Trump government shutdown, and we are yet to see a clear path towards the end of it. Meanwhile, the government employees are suffering. Real people, real families, real American workers. To discuss these topics and more, we have a very special guest. But before we continue, we want to thank those thousands of viewers who are tuning in weekly to get informed and stay updated. Our channel is becoming one of the fastest growing shows for the working class in the United States. So we couldn't do it without your help. If you are an American worker, if you like to stay up to date with the latest news that affects whatever it is that affects your home, make sure to share, like, and subscribe. It's free and it helps us provide high quality, high value content. Help us make this channel the #1 voice of the American workforce. All right. Well, today I am joined by Dr. Kelley. He is the national president of AFGE and the biggest voice for federal workers in the nation. Dr. Kelley, thank you so much for joining me here today.
It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me.
Thank you, Dr. Kelley. Well, we'll just get started. And I just want to start this podcast with the pressing issues that are going on with our American workforce. As we know, America right now is under attack. And it's starting with the most vulnerable, the ones who keep our government running, our skies safe, our veterans healthy. Today, we are under an administration who sees federal workers as the enemy, but the reality is that federal workers keep America from collapsing on itself. They are the backbone of our country. Today, we are going to deep dive into all of this. But before we do that, Dr. Kelley, I want my viewers to get to know you a little better and understand the man behind the fight and how you got to where you are at. If you can just tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, first of all, thank you for having me. I am a Southern raised boy, born and raised in Alabama, graduated high school, went in the military, got out of the military, went to work for the Department of Army at Anniston Army Depot in Anniston, Alabama, where I served for 30 years. And that's why I got involved in the labor movement, first of all as shop steward, then chief steward, and then executive vice president, and then ultimately president of my local. And then I became national vice president of District 5, which is, the southern region, and then secretary treasurer for AFGE. And now I serve as president of AFGE. And I got involved because I wanted to make sure that everybody was treated fairly, right? No one would have to go through some of the things that I went through, okay?
When was the moment that you decided, this is it, this is what I want to do? I want to defend the rights of the American workforce. When was that deciding?
When I was done, when I was discriminated against myself, right? I said, you know what? I want to make sure that no one else have to go through this. I can make sure that if I represent people, they'll be represented fairly, and, without any reservations whatsoever. And that would have been in around 1985 when I finally made, I was already a rep, but when I finally made that decision that this is where I want to go was around 1985, when I knew that I wasn't going to get promotions, and I just gave up on that type of thing. So, you know what? I just want to represent people.
That's awesome. And, it's very inspiring, especially for me, because I even though the VA is under attack, I'm still a representative with the VA. and I'm a proud shop steward of AFGE, and it's very inspiring to me to hear you what you did and what you've gone through and how you got there. Now, saying that, what do you think are some of the biggest challenges right now in the federal workforce?
Well, for me personally, the biggest challenge is to get the federal employees back to work and back receiving a paycheck that they deserve. That is the most challenging thing for me. Now, when you start speaking in terms of the federal workforce, overall, I think it's the fact that they have gone through so much over the last 9 months, and that is getting the administration to really understand what it is that federal workers do and how they provide a valuable service to the American people.
Yeah, and it's kind of scary to think that we live in a time where if you're a federal worker, you are bound and subject to having at some point in your career being faced with having to work without a paycheck, being forced to present to work without having any kind of compensation, putting your family at risk, putting your career at risk. And this is the times that we're living in right now. So so based on that, I want to go into the government shutdown, because we are right now nearing a whole month when this second, or some say third, shutdown happened under the Trump administration, and it is very challenging in the federal workforce. So I just wanted to touch base on what can you tell us right now, for those people that have been furloughed, that are worried about their paychecks, that work in the government. What can you initially tell us about what's going on right now with this shutdown?
Well, that's a good question. Let me just start by saying that the position that I take is that there should never be a government shutdown. That I can't think of a reason in the world why the government should ever shut down, because the fact of the matter is that federal employees should not be used as pawns in any political game. Under no circumstance. No day, no time, nowhere should that ever occur. Now, that's why I'm fighting every single day to make sure that federal employees get what they deserve. And right now, what they deserve is to be back on the job and having their paycheck, because they are just like 65% of America. The rest of the 65% of America, right? They live from paycheck to paycheck. And my ultimate goal at this point is to make sure that they get those paychecks, because they got to eat. They have to eat. They have to provide for their family. They have mortgages. They have car note. They have to put gasoline in their vehicle. They have children in college. All of these things that come with being a family, federal employees have to endure. So ultimately, I think that federal employees should never have to undergo a shutdown, because they did anything to contribute to this, right? Nothing. So they shouldn't be pawns in this game. The federal people still need the services that the federal employee provide. So a government shutdown is always out of the ordinary, in my opinion. It should never occur.
Yeah, and you brought a very interesting and very truthful point, and that is that this isn't the fault of the workers that are there. If anything, it is the government's responsibility. And right now, the government is failing at its responsibility to run the government efficiently, and this is going on at the cost of thousands of federal workers that are not receiving a paycheck. A lot of them are worried that if they will ever receive a paycheck, because as we know, We've heard threats about them possibly not getting one by this administration, and all these different things that are frankly illegal because of what happened during the last shutdown with what they did, and the amendments that were made to ensure that these people receive pay after government shutdown. So there's a lot of things that are going on that are worrying people, especially those government workers, especially those who are on those positions that right now haven't received a paycheck. And it's affecting not only, it's not affecting just the workers, it's affecting the essentially the services that they provide. It's affecting different things. I want to go into that a little bit deeper, Dr. Kelley. Like, what are some of the ramifications, some of the effects that we can see happen if this shutdown doesn't stop soon? What can come out of it, and what can we do to ensure that we make it through this time?
You know, again, that is a good question. But when you start looking at the economic impact of this shutdown, now it's virtually impossible to calculate that at this moment, but we do have data from the last shutdown in 2019. $11 billion was taken out of this American economy as a result of a 35-day partial shutdown. Now, you can only imagine what will happen, what's going to happen if this goes on any further, because you're not talking about just a partial shutdown. You're talking about, 750,000 federal employees being furloughed. That's an economic impact. That means that monies that normally would be in our communities are not there. And that drives other factors, right? But not only that, when you start looking at the services that the American people are so used to, such as, our meat inspectors, right? Our food inspectors that inspect food. If they furloughed, who's going to inspect that food, right? Or it's going to be scaled down so much so that, it's not adequate. And that means that Americans could be sick from, foodborne poisoning and those types of things, right? So when you look at that, American people are going to suffer behind that. When you start looking at our air, quality of air, EPA employees being furloughed and rifted, right? It's going to affect the American people. When you start looking long term, if this continues to go on, you look at the processing time for veterans claims, for Social Security claims, all these types of things. Look at air travel, right? Look at our TSA employees, when you start getting backed up, in the airports, and this is how people are going to be affected. They're going to be missing their flights and all these type of things that we don't want to occur, and that the American workforce want to provide these services, but nevertheless, they are hindered from doing so. So that's just a few things. I mean, I know that right now a lot of the DoD are working, but if this thing continues to go and they furlough some of our DoD employees, that affects Army readiness, right? There's a lot of factors that has to be considered when you start talking about furloughing employees that provide a service for the American people.
Right. So it's much deeper than just federal workers not getting a paycheck. I mean, it affects, at a personal level, it immensely affects those families, especially those who don't have enough to even survive a month they don't have months worth of salary saved up. But then, and that's the vast majority of Americans.
Right.
And then these services that are being affected right now, that there's a big worry that if this continues on, these agencies, I mean, how can it be sustainable for an agency, and I mean, and any other agency that's private that weren't government, this wouldn't happen because people wouldn't, they would simply just wouldn't work. But we, as federal employees, we don't have that option. We
Right.
have to show up. We have to make sure that we're there because in effect the services that we provide are essential, whether they think they are or not. Every government position is essential.
Right.
So and going on that, and you talked about some of the negative effects that this has on our economy, even the military readiness, which I frankly I didn't think about that part, and it's very true, and it just goes on to show that our government, our government employees shouldn't be politicized, like you said earlier. Now you did so you did say something that I've been saying since the start of this shutdown as well. I completely agree that our federal employees are being used as political pawns. They certainly are being used as political pawns. Um, Government employees in general, the position of a regular government employee should be essentially apolitical, correct? They should be separate, and their positions shouldn't be based on political affiliations. It shouldn't be based on anything that has to do with politics, really, because it doesn't drive the mission of the agency, but rather the mission of a particular man that's behind the agency, right? So what are some of the dangers, Dr. Kelley, of if we continue to see this? What are some of the dangers of politicizing federal jobs, and why should we not want this? Because I know some people uh, probably haven't thought about it this way, but our jobs are essentially being politicized. So what's the dangers behind politicizing federal positions?
And that's a great question. And you've heard AFGE talk about, Schedule F uh, before the administration, took office. Uh, and, the reason for that is because this administration talked about in Project 2025 having a group of people that was totally loyal to who's in power and not the American people. And when you get that, right, you don't get, in my opinion, the apolitical civil servant that is true to the Constitution or true to the American people. Because in order to maintain your status as that uh, person that reports to the president or to politicized positions, I'm gonna put it like that, then you are more apt to try and entertain the thought processes of that individual rather than the Constitution of the United States, rather than the people of the United States. So therefore, you can't come to work and do your job as a federal employee and make decisions based on what's right. You make decisions based on what someone has told you. I mean, when you start talking about people that we represent in the labor department that do inspections in the industry, right? But if it's an political position, guess what? You can go and you can make those decisions. But if it's a political appointee, that you got to report to, you're going to find yourself doing exactly what they said do, or you without a job. And who suffers behind that? It's the American people, because these are the people that are out there inspecting the plants that says that, you can't send this meat to consumers. But if your supervisor says send it, guess what? The American people are going to suffer, because now they having these diseases that's unaccounted for. So that's just one aspect of why we don't need these positions that are strictly political. You need a person in those positions that can be independent and can make independent decisions.
Right.
And that's why the union, represent those employees, because we want to make sure of that.
That's right. And that's one of the and we'll talk, and I want to go into, before we go, I want to go into what the union does for federal employees and why it's so important. But um that is one of the biggest difference between a non-government job and a government job, is that essentially we serve the American people, and we should be serving, we should be serving constitutionally, and like you very well said, and let me just give you this example, and I know you know this example, about our some of the Title V employees that the reports that were coming on, where they needed to state where their allegiance were, if they, which ones of the presidential uh, executive orders were their favorites, how they would advance this, and these are all things that, at the end of the day, they're, how does that support the Constitution? How does that support the American people? So there's a big question mark there, and the answer is clear. I mean, at the end of the day, if you politicize federal workers, if you politicize the whole government, they're not, the government is not going to serve its people, its constituents, the people that pay with their taxes. It's going to end up serving the man that's in charge or the woman that's in charge. So it's a big issue that we have to keep an eye out and make sure that this doesn't happen. And this is one of the most important uh, factors that come into why we need a union
Mm-hmm.
in the federal government. Um, you know, CBAs are important. Unions are important, Dr. Kelley, and we know that this government, it failed in getting rid of a union because it can't get rid of unions. We've seen unions run. I mean, before collective bargaining was a thing, unions were defending and protecting people. So I want you to talk to us a little bit about why now more than ever, why is it important to keep people unionizing and staying together? What's the importance of this at the face of, at the event of what we're facing right now?
Okay. Well, first of all, and that is a great question because, labor unions exist because working people discovered a long time ago, that our strength lies in our solidarity, right? Now, alone, one worker's voice can be ignored. But when, you got thousands of workers standing together for the same cause, guess what? They cannot be silenced. We were born out of struggles, right? From the mills, the mines, factories, government offices, and like you said, before there was ever a contract, unions were in existence and they was representing their members because AFGE itself has been in business for 93 years. Okay, but we only got the civil service reform in 1978 when we began to get contracts and those type of things. But we were representing employees way before that because we exist to balance power. Okay, the labor movement is the great equalizer. It brings working people to the same table, and those who hold wealth and authority not to beg, right, but to bargain. And see, that's the thing about it. We shouldn't ever have to beg for anything. And that's the reason why it hurt me so bad to wake up on last Thursday and see federal employees in a food line, because that is not the idea of a union, because we exist to protect what's fair. Okay? Every right that workers enjoy today, weekends, holiday pay, and overtime pay, and safety laws, all of these was fought for through a union. And so that's why we exist, right? We exist to keep America's promise, right? The labor movement is about more than wages and contracts. It's about the American promise that every person, regardless of their race, their gender, or their background, deserve a fair shot. So that's one of the other reasons why we exist, right? And we also exist to speak for the voiceless, right? Because there's so many people, just like right now, the federal workforce is voiceless. right? And it's been intentional. And it's the union that's standing up, making known what the issues are that they are facing. So that's another reason why, we exist, right? We exist to build a just and a moral economy. Okay, we want to make sure that every employee are paid a decent wage, right? So that they can provide for their family. So that's another reason. So in short, we exist because fairness requires defenders. Okay? We exist because justice demands a voice. We exist because dignity must never depend on a paycheck, right? And that's why I proudly say, that this movement is about people. This is a people movement. And when people stand together in solidarity, then there is your union.
That's right. So, and uh, unions in general, like the word union, I think a lot of people have emphasized on the wrong thing. I think a lot of people have emphasized on the word contract, because this is the word that this administration wants people to focus on, is contracts, a cancellation of contracts, and this is one of the biggest issue I see as part of the VA is our contract, which have been uh, essentially not recognized by this agency at this moment. We've seen it before, and we've gone through it. It's not an easy process to go through, and it's very demoralizing for the members that are there that want a union, but they're made to be felt like they don't have one. Um, you know, Dr. Kelley, I know AFGE is working hard every day to restore these rights. Our members, especially those in the VA, they want to know, how do we get our contract back? How do we get collective bargaining back? What can you tell us about where we're at and what's the path going forward?
Okay, and that is a good question. One thing I'm awfully proud of is the legislative and the legal staff that we have here at AFGE, and they're doing their thing. Okay, legislatively, we are dealing with issues on Capitol Hill, and legally, we're fighting these initiatives in the courts. But if I must be honest, two things have to happen. Number one, all the members got to stand together. We have to stand together till we get through this, because, like you said, we've been through this before, but we came out bigger and better at the end. The same thing is going to happen here, but we need people to stand together in solidarity. And the second most important thing is they too must get involved legislatively and politically, calling their Congress, Democrat, Republican, Independent, and said, look, we want our bargaining rights back. These two things combined is what's going to bring us through. But never, ever give up. That's the key. Don't give up. Let's continue to fight. AFGE National is not going anyplace. We're going to be here. We're going to be here to represent our employees and our members. We're going to fight in court. We're going to fight in Congress, and we're going to fight everywhere we need to fight. But on a local level, you got to get the membership involved, right? They can't run away. In the midst of these troubles that we're having, they got to stand solid, and then they got to make the phone calls themselves. That's how we win. That's how we overcome.
Right. It's by staying together and putting a group effort into this.
Yes.
I mean, a union is a group of united people. So we have to keep united. We have to keep together. We have to keep pushing. We have to not just rely on those that are in the offices, but we also have to put our part as well.
Absolutely.
Because at the end of the day, we are that group. And if we give up on it, we're going to lose it together. So so you're absolutely right. This is a group effort, Dr. Kelley. Before we wrap up, Dr. Kelley, what other message would you like to send every federal worker that's listening right now that maybe feels frustrated or powerless, and those that what can we do for those that are right now in this situation where they can't that are furloughed and all these different things, to stand in solidarity with them?
Well, I'm going to say, first of all, I'm going to ask them to stand with their union because there is no other entity on the planet that's fighting for them other than their union. I'm going to ask them, to don't grow faint in heart, but let's stand and let's stand united and let's take on the resolve that there is nothing anyone could ever do to make me turn against my union, right? Because my union is the only entity that's out there and that's voicing my concerns, that's voicing my opinion. So I'm going to stand with them. And if we do that, we're going to survive. I know it's tough right now, and many have heard me say this over and over and over again. I know that it's tough, because management is saying there is no union, but we got to understand that we are our union. We are our union. We are the individuals that make this union. And let's make it a strong union and not a union that'll tuck tail and run, when the administration come against us, because that's going to pass too. And we're going to be strong and we're going to be vigilant, as long as AFGE is in existence. And I don't think AFGE is going anywhere no time soon.
I agree. I agree. And I 100% believe that myself. We're not going anywhere.
No.
And this is coming from a person that's in the struggle as well. I'm in this as well. As a government worker, I'm going through the same struggles that every other government worker is going through right now. And if there's one thing that I don't lose, is hope, is faith, because that's what's going to get us through.
Yes, sir.
So, Dr. Kelley, thank you so much for joining me today. I'm gonna wrap this up real quick because I know you have things to do, and I just appreciate that you were able to cut a little bit of your time here to sit here and talk to me. It's an honor having you on the show.
The pleasure is mine, and I look forward to getting back with you when I have more time.
All right. We'll make it happen. Thank you so much, Dr. Kelley. And to all of our viewers, thank you so much for being a part of this growing movement. Every week, we're proving that working people do care, do pay attention, and will speak up. So remember, if you believe in protecting workers, defending rights, and holding power accountable, helps us keep this mission going. Like, share, and subscribe. It's free, and it helps us reach more workers across the country. Together, we will make this the #1 voice of the American workforce right here on Rights Watch. Until the next one, stay safe, God bless, and remember, we are not giving up.